A quick note before we start today's episode. This conversation involves highly emotional themes, traumatic loss, and mental health challenges that may be difficult for some listeners. Please take care of yourself while listening, and remember that support resources and helpline numbers are always available in our show notes.
And on today's episode, we have Chris Coulter. He is a father, he is an entrepreneur, and he sadly lost his daughter, Maddie, 10 years ago to suicide. And today, Chris has an organization called Mentor Well to ensure that no parent has to experience the loss that he did. Chris, welcome to Dirty Laundry. Thank you for giving up your time to share your story with us. You have a hard one to share. And we'd love to hear it as much as you want to. So if you could start, tell us about your daughter, Maddie.
Well, Maddie was my firstborn. She was the first girl in our family. It seems like in generations.
Oh, wow.
She just was, you know what, as soon as she came out, this 5-pound, 14-ounce tiny little thing with big eyes looking up at you. As a dad for the first time, it was just like, oh, she had me at hello.
Yep.
So anyway, we had a great relationship. It certainly wasn't without its trying times.
Yeah.
As the dynamic between, especially as they get into the tweens and teens.
Yes.
Navigating divorce, moves. I had a business that went out of business. So it was challenging.
Yeah.
She was such an amazing kid. And unfortunately, half of the stuff that I knew about her, I didn't realize until after she was gone. But she was smart. She was funny, just wicked sense of humor.
Yeah.
She was smart, athletic. She was kind, like really, really kind. At the same time, she was the barn boss.
Yep.
She knew exactly, and her brothers, man, they knew it.
She was boss. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But she was also, there was that hard exterior layer, but inside she was such a soft and gentle kid.
Yeah.
And I say that I only heard about the stuff that I knew about, and it was after her passing where I found out that I had all these messages from friends, or it wasn't even friends. It was people who had crossed paths with her. And I'll share one. She went to North Toronto High School.
Yeah.
She was new there. She'd been in private school for a number of years. So this was her first foray really into the public school system.
Okay.
And she was new, and there was some kid, it was, I guess classes were changing. And this girl dropped her books in the hall. Everyone was kind of busy scrambling off to their next classes. Maddie just said, hey, asked her name, and you could see she was totally flustered.
Yeah.
And asked her name and picked up her books and said, where's your next class? And so Maddie picked up her books, walked with her to her class, and just said, here you go. And it wasn't like the big grandiose stuff. She didn't do it for attention.
Right.
But she just did it to be kind.
Yeah.
And those are the messages, without the pomp and circumstance, not looking for validation at all. It's just who she was. And I'll share one other little story, because it's kind of funny in a ass backwards kind of way. But when she attempted suicide the first time, she was placed in the Youth Mental Psychiatric Center at North York General Hospital.
Okay.
And she stayed there for two bouts, one for 10 days and another for 2 months. But she designated herself as the unit greeter. So it's a stark and sterile environment, very cold. And for parents and for kids who are walking into this for the first time, it can be really, really intimidating.
Yeah.
And so what Maddie Maddie designated herself. A family would walk in, she'd walk up to him and she'd go, "Hi, I'm Maddie. What's your name?" And just made her feel welcome. And
Wow.
she sacrificed her own light to give to others. And that's probably the best way to describe who she was.
Yeah. Wow. As parents, we say all we want is to raise, kind humans. And often we get so bogged down in, I don't want to say the superficial or the materialistic, but really the stuff that doesn't matter. What grades are you
The
getting?
performative stuff.
Yeah. Like, are you a star athlete? Are you
Right.
winning awards?
The labels.
Yeah. Are you making us as parents look good out in the real world, when you get there? Are you polite instead of, kind? But it sounds like she truly was kind, because even when no one was looking, she wore her heart on her sleeve. That's
Yeah.
really, really sweet. So she's got 2 younger brothers. You have 3 children total?
Yeah, 3 kids, 2 boys and an angel.
Yeah.
And so Zach, who's now 24,
Mm.
Sawyer is 20. Zach's out in the real world working, and Sawyer's just finished 3rd year at
Wow.
Dalhousie.
Oh, nice.
And
What was
they were greatly influenced, and Zach in
Yeah.
particular, because Zach and Maddie were about 19 months apart.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Very close.
Maddie was like, they were each other's kind of safe space.
Yeah.
And Zach absolutely idolized her. And when Maddie passed, obviously it was devastating on both of them. But Zach, who is I'll call it, he has a quiet, stoic confidence about him.
Mm-hmm.
My other son's very flamboyant out there. He's just like, look at me, look at me.
Yeah.
Zach's kind of like the quietly confident kid.
Mm.
And he decided he wanted to, on behalf of his sister, go and talk to all these high schools in and around the GTA, and had assemblies. And he spoke in front of sometimes 1,000 kids.
Wow.
And that was not his nature. But he did that, even though it was probably uncomfortable for him, he did it as a tribute to his sister.
And how old was Zach when his sister passed?
Zach was in grade, I believe it's grade 7 or grade 8. I think it's grade 8. So he was probably like 14. I think he was 14 at the time.
Wow.
13 or 14.
And how do you, Chris, as a parent going through such a loss, still then show up for the other 2 and manage and support them in the way that they're coping with their own loss? That's a lot.
Yeah, it was really difficult. And honestly, I coached both my boys' hockey teams,
Wow.
which was very demanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My ex lived in Europe.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the time I was doing it on my own.
Yeah.
You lean on kind of like other coaches, parents,
the village.
carpooling, and logistically.
Yeah.
I look back and I go, how the hell did I do that?
Right?
Yeah.
But you just did.
Yeah. Yeah, you just don't have a choice. You just keep going.
The thing about traumatic loss is you tend to wear a mask.
Yeah.
You tend to kind of deflect a lot of stuff. You don't draw attention into yourself. You kind of just go, no, I'm good. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And hope that the inquisition doesn't go beyond that.
Right.
So
because you can't let yourself be vulnerable. The second you open up, it's kind of like the floodgates.
Yeah. Well, one thing I did do, and the thing is, I wasn't able to. The only way I was really able to articulate myself and to be able to kind of share what I was going through was in my writing. And I started writing early on. Originally it was for me, and then I started to share because the person I was seeing at the time, she said to me, you know what? I think a lot of people can benefit from what you're writing.
Yeah.
And so I started to put it out there. And it's amazing. I had, over the course of the next 10 years plus, I had conversations with more than 2,000 parents.
Wow.
Who were going through something very similar to what we had gone through with Maddie. And from that standpoint, it was cathartic, but I also recognized that there's there was huge issues out there, and parents are dealing with a
Yeah.
whole lot,
Yeah.
and they don't necessarily have the resources or the capacity to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And that,
Capacity is
if
huge.
they saw my writing as kind of a guiding light, or just reassurance that someone else has been through it,
Yeah.
and um, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of dark times for
Yeah.
me.
I bet.
Sometimes I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to pull out of it.
So take us back to that, if that's okay. To that time, you've got three kids at the time, and then this traumatic, obviously, thing happens, and you lose your daughter, and you're on your own as a single parent. What does that look like?
I was fortunate in that the person I was seeing had three girls around the same kind of age as my kids, a little bit older. And when I'll preface it by saying I was a single parent, their mom would be over in Europe for 2 weeks and would come back for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So it's not like she was completely
I see.
out of the picture. But when she was out of town, she was out of town.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of shame, a lot of regret, a lot of fear. And for me, I owned my own business, and I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I don't know if I even properly grieved Maddie. I think because I felt the pressure to perform. I needed to deal with my business. But the problem is I would be engaged in my business, but you're looking at your computer and you're really not seeing anything. And I there's a number of studies out there by Deloitte Wellness, and they say that when you're navigating something like that, you lose 30 to 40% of your productivity.
Wow.
In my case, and not that it's something you can't measure grief, and it's not consistent. Like you said, it's not linear.
Yeah.
But in my case, it was like my productivity loss was probably upwards of 80, 90%.
Sure.
So you can imagine what that did from a financial
Oh, well,
perspective.
exactly. You still have to put food on the table for the other two kids, right? You can't just, throw in the towel, but I can only imagine how often you wanted to. And so if I can ask, Chris, if this isn't too personal, you're with a partner at the time. That's a lot of pressure, on the relationship. Plus, and maybe this is just me and my gross way of looking at things, but this person who has 3 girls or children at the same age, the same gender, and you've lost yours. How difficult was that?
Oh, it was I was very grateful to have them in my life.
Okay.
It was really tough. I think the hardest part was on my partner.
Yeah.
She said, "I don't know how to emotionally support you."
Yeah.
And I said, "I don't know either."
Yeah, exactly. It's the blind leading the blind. Yeah.
Just kind of be there.
Yeah.
Do you find that people around you also just didn't know what to do?
pulled
So maybe they
back.
pull back because they're afraid to do the wrong thing, to say the wrong thing. And so I guess the default is to just detach.
They do nothing?
They do
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, and that is typically what happens, Amanda. People think silence is safety, and at the end of the day, you don't have to be perfect in your words. You just have to kind of acknowledge the person, acknowledge the loss.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the stuff that I was writing about, was trying to educate people, because grief is really freaking terrible. And no one, unless you've been through something like that, can really identify with what someone is going through. And it's really, really challenging. So I wrote a lot about what you should do if someone someone you care about is grieving, and how to be a comfort for them, how to be a life preserver for that person, because most don't get it.
Yeah.
And especially
That's it.
the specific type of grief
This
that
is
you're dealing
very
with, right?
specific.
Like the natural order of things is people lose parents, people lose grandparents. At some point they lose siblings, but it's unnatural to lose a child. It is, right? And so how do people comfort someone who has gone through the most
The
unimaginable
worst loss.
loss that
Yeah.
you can't even put into words?
Yeah. I love that you've told people. We ask that a lot of our guests and folks going through divorce is how do you want people to show up, or how do you wish, like if you're looking back in hindsight, how do you wish people showed up? Because we find the same thing in the divorce sphere, which is, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to be
I'm
there.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
And people are so like, divorce is contagious, so they just steer clear.
And then you're alone.
But I love that you have said, no, here's actually sort of a step-by-step how to. So the writing is both cathartic and also outwardly helping those that may be following in a similar path, which is so wonderful.
Well, I think it's important because realistically, we're all going to have to navigate it at some point in our lives.
Yeah.
If we've managed to avert it to this point, then consider yourself lucky.
Yeah.
But eventually it does come back and bite you in the butt.
Yeah, it really does come find you.
Well, it's interesting because about 2 months ago, I lost my mom. And my dad, who obviously went through the loss with Maddie, but not to the kind of the extent, obviously, that I did. And he and Maddie were close, but when he lost my mom, it was one of those things where he didn't understand the grieving journey, kind of like I did. So it's kind of like I'm teaching my dad about grief and kind of the journey,
That's so
what
beautiful.
to expect. And I go, it's a fucking shit show.
Yeah. Expect
Sorry,
the worst.
go nuts.
We swear.
We swear lots.
Swear to your heart's content.
Yeah. The people we talk to are going through a lot. You just let her rip.
Yeah.
Not to worry.
Well, there's some things that just don't give phrases justice.
It's true.
Yeah.
So,
especially the topic that we are discussing. Yeah.
But exactly how beautiful in almost like a full circle moment that you get to be there, because you're supporting now through your work, and we'll get there, a lot of other parents, but I don't think you ever expected that you would have this skill set to be able to support your own parents, which is pretty magical if you can silver lining anything out of this, horrible experience.
Yeah, and I think it gave him an understanding as to what my journey's been like for the last 10 years. And it's terrible to see him inconsolable at times. And I think there's this sense of calmness that I have. When she was in the hospital, and it happened suddenly. So not a lot of us had any time to kind of process anything. But I had this calmness, and I felt Maddie was on my shoulder throughout this, kind of going, Dad, you got this. I'm going to be here with you. Those are kind of the gifts of grief that I've now come to understand, that for a long time, grief just was pain. And I'll share, there's like a pivoting point. About a year and a half ago, I was always trying to get back to this person I was before I lost Maddie. When I finally realized I wasn't meant to get back to that person, I was supposed to embrace the person that I've become. It was like this magical moment that I just went, oh shit, I get this now. And it's interesting because, and I'm not sure if the two are related or not, but everything preceding that was, when I thought of Maddie, I thought of sadness. It was a tragic event for me, and it's always going to be a tragedy.
Absolutely.
But when I think of Maddie, I now think of the good stuff. I think of, it makes me smile. It makes me laugh.
You light up when you say her name. You can see that. You do. And how beautiful is that you can, remember her in that way.
And the beautiful part about it is I get to come to work every single day, and she is my co-pilot on this journey.
Yeah.
Which is which I'm so grateful for. And I've never been more inspired or propelled to do the work that I'm doing. And I
Amazing.
thought I always had a very fulfilling career.
Mm.
But now it's like, wow, this takes it up to the next level.
Can we talk a little bit? Because I think it's part and parcel with the work that you're doing, which is sort of supporting families. And I think part of your work, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that sort of idea of like the signs that you missed that maybe other families can be on the lookout for. Like when you reflect back, were there certain things where you're like, ugh, if only I had, or yes, that now makes sense, or how could I have, walk us through whatever that looks like from your perspective.
Yeah. And I think as parents, if we're navigating something like this, we tend to chalk up certain behaviors to just normal adolescent stuff.
Right.
Yes. We
Right.
excuse
So
a
we
lot of
become
behavior away.
Yeah.
Yes.
we become dismissive,
Yeah.
and we go, oh, it's just a phase,
Right.
Right.
which in some respects that's true, but in others there's more defined signals,
Mm.
I'll call them, that we need to be we need to have our kind of spidey senses up
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
things like, yeah, we all know teenagers enjoy, and I'm not going to say teenagers, I'm going to say adolescents,
Mm.
because I have conversations with parents whose kids who are 8 and 9
Yeah.
who are dealing with this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is crazy.
It's unfortunate. I think a lot of the world has sped up, whether it's access to information right online. They just, again, this is probably my personal bias, but what I see is just a sped up maturity in our children and our youth these days that breaks my heart. I'm like,
Yeah.
you have the rest of your life, hopefully, to be an adult. Please just cherish, the 15, 18 years you've
Does.
got to just be a kid. But listen, I was a kid who wanted to grow up faster than I was.
Everyone
and
does.
I think that's common.
That's sort of
I think what's not common that me growing up in the, 80s, 90s versus today is, again, just that access and that constant influx of information. And now we're getting, way more comparisons, lots of body issue, online bullying. There's so much more
also
that kids
online
need to do.
encouragement to do harm as well.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's that whole component too. That
But yeah, so
But-
adolescence, because it
Yes.
does start earlier. Sorry, I cut you off. Continue, please.
Yeah, kids or adolescents, they like their privacy,
Yeah.
right? And I think we kind of all acknowledge that. We enjoyed it as we became a lot more private
Yeah.
as we were growing up and becoming more autonomous and
Mhm.
independent. But when it's prolonged, a day or two is normal.
Right.
But when it becomes kind of weeks or months of seclusion and isolation, that's when things are a little bit more concerning. You can't say, oh, that's just normal teenage behavior.
Right.
Or when they kind of check out of relationships like family or
Yeah.
friends, or they don't want to do anything anymore.
Yeah.
That's all kind of part and parcel as well. Disruption to sleeping and eating habits,
Yeah.
eating too much, sleeping too much, not enough, too much.
Mm.
Those are all indicators that we've kind of be mindful of.
Mhm.
Stuff that they used to love to do. In Maddie's case, she was a competitive swimmer. She
Right.
loved it. That was
Yeah.
kind of her whole sorority was in the pool.
Yeah.
And then she just kind of fell out of love with it.
Mm.
And what was once a passion became more of a, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and unfortunately myself, we were at a swim meet in Newmarket, and Maddie, she was a really good swimmer. She grew early,
Mm.
and she always podiumed for the most part. But one time she was in the pool, and I could just see she was fighting the water.
Hmm.
And it wasn't the physical aspect of it. You could tell it was the mental aspect of it.
No.
And at the end of a 2-day meet, or at the end of the first day of a 2-day meet, she came to me and said, Dad, do I have to go back tomorrow?
Wow.
And I kind of said, I gave her a pass, thinking, okay, maybe this is just a temporary reprieve.
Mhm.
And that was the last time she swam competitively.
Wow.
So I wish I hadn't relented as quickly and as easily. And honestly, sometimes as a parent, you're just burnt out.
For sure.
And you don't
And
Yeah.
can't fight. You pick your
You
battles.
got to pick your
and,
battles.
And you might think, oh, well, maybe they're not interested in that anymore
Yeah.
because kids change their mind.
And we should allow them to change their minds.
Okay, they're not,
we want to
know,
support them.
I think that's a perfectly reasonable position to take.
I agree, but now in knowing the relationship in particular with exercise and depression, you know what? Maybe not being in the pool 8 times a week, but maybe stepping it down to 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Let's kind of modify the intensity.
Yeah.
And you know what? She can maintain that, or if she wants to ramp it up again, I think that would have been. You live in regret.
Yeah.
You have these things. Wow, I wish I'd done things differently. That's one of those things that I kind of wish I had done differently.
Yeah.
It's just the whole approach to their swimming.
Right. So it sounds like in terms of warning signs, looking back now, it's a change in their behavior, right? Because it doesn't matter if they were doing something, it's really more the change and pattern.
It's a pattern, a change in patterns.
Exactly.
Because every day, you can get a different kid sometimes.
Well,
with hormones and teenagers and what goes on at school. And there's so many ways to justify and dismiss all of those signs. Oh, they had a bad day, or they're fighting with their friends, or they didn't do well on their tests, or their swim meet. So how does one differentiate between just normal teenage woes and something that is more concerning?
Well, and that was a big problem. I kind of was dismissive. I was kind of justifying. And a lot of these conversations with parents I've had over the years, they tended to do the same thing. So what I did is I created this tool, and it's called Teen Signal Check. It's 13 questions. And it's gender specific because the nuances between boys and girls is different.
Right.
And it takes less than 5 minutes to go through it. And at the end of it, it gives you a green, yellow, or red. So you're okay for the time being, caution, or alert.
Right.
And so parents would come to me too late.
Yeah.
And from the mentor well standpoint, it was something that I couldn't deal with a child in crisis. I need to be further upstream.
Right.
As I like to say, mentorship is a bridge between parenting and therapy. And it's if they wait till crisis, then it's a completely different animal.
Right.
When you're dealing with crisis.
Right.
So that was a tool that I wanted to get in something that was simple, something that's understandable, something that was relatable, but also something that they could apply quickly and easily and not necessarily justify that, oh, this is just teenage stuff.
Right.
Can you give us an example of like 1 or 2 questions from the list?
Yeah, it's a lot of the same kind of questions that we've talked about, but it really comes down to it's duration and intensity.
Okay.
So do they spend inordinate amount of time in their room? And yes, sometimes a great percentage of the time, all the time.
Right.
There's like 4 different multiple choice options, but at the end of the day, and then it also gets into stuff like, do they talk about kind of self-harm? Do they talk about, hey, no one would really miss me? Because sarcasm is their second language. They tend to want to, they're just like, you know what? No one would really miss me if I was here anyway. So those little subtle sarcastic phrases, pay attention.
Right.
Those have certain nuances that parents need to pay attention to.
Are they testing the waters for the reaction to that? Because it's like, as a parent, how do you react to that? Yeah.
Do you want, as the parent, to quickly go, oh my God, alert, something is wrong. Let's take these, drastic steps.
Or is that reaction fueling the problem?
Exactly. Or does it exacerbate?
And often what they do is what kids want you to do is they want to make sure, even though it's uncomfortable conversation, that you're going to still be there.
Yeah.
And they want that psychological safety so that they want to know that when shit really gets bad, that you're going to be there.
Mhm.
Yep.
And it's kind of like these little tests that
Mhm.
they throw in our direction
Yeah.
to see how we'll respond.
So Mentor Well is the organization that you established to support other families, other kids. Talk to us about the sort of model and how you are supporting your community.
Yeah. So originally, the idea came from the premise of what would have benefited Maddie had it been available at the time.
Love it.
And the first thing that popped into my mind was mentorship. And mentorship, not in a traditional business sense, but more in the sense of a lived experience standpoint. So we operate on the premise that we want to build kids' confidence, kids' resiliency,
Yeah.
help kids with their direction,
Mm.
and also with elements of emotional intelligence. And so the intent was to put someone who's gone through something similar. So we'll take Maddie as an example, who navigated a really nasty divorce with her parents, was put in a really difficult situation, and let's say she was a competitive swimmer who was just feeling mentally, emotionally burnt out.
Yeah.
So if you could partner with her with someone who was, let's say, 5-10 years older, because going back to high school, remember how we always revered these
Totally.
people who are like 4 or 5 years older,
Of
right?
course.
Yeah.
And so if we can partner them up, mentor mentee, with someone who's been through something very similar,
Yeah.
doesn't have to be identical, but just relatable,
Mm-hmm.
and they made it through, and they are now in a position where they're not kind of questioning their future.
Right.
That is relatability to someone who is navigating something similar.
Yes.
And seeing that they made it through means,
Mhm.
hey, you know what? Maybe there's an opportunity for me to get through this as well.
And how does it work? So let's say there's a teen that is struggling with some, depressive issues and self-harm thoughts or something else related to their life. The parents
It could,
then, how does that work? How does it, like, in practical terms?
well, the interesting. I'm going to back up a little bit
Sure.
first, because why this is so important. Because kids, when they start talking, parents have an instinctive inclination to jump in to fix it mode,
Yep.
fix it, advice giving mode.
Yep.
And
Guilty.
that is a
Yeah.
surefire way to get your kid to shut down.
Yes.
So by having someone who's a neutral, not emotionally, and let's face
Yeah.
it comes from a place of love.
Of course.
But they interpret it as
Criticism.
basically invasive.
Yeah.
And we think we know the answer because we know what's
Yes.
best for them, and we're
Yes.
wiser and older, and we think we know the answer, but they need to get to it
I know.
themselves.
We wanna-
even
we-
if it's not the right
We
one.
just want to save them from any kind of hurt, but it is the hurt that they have to experience in order to build the resiliency. So we're doing more harm in our attempts to do good. But I do think it's, altruistic and well, good-hearted anyways.
It's all comes from a really loving place.
Yeah, we're just
The
screwed it
problem,
up.
it's interpreted by them
Yeah.
completely
Yes.
differently than what our
Yeah.
intentions are,
Yeah,
right?
the teenage brain is wired very differently than an adult brain.
So by having someone who is emotionally disconnected, the other aspect is we control the punitive aspect of the relationship.
Right.
Correct.
So the interesting thing is when you have someone who's navigated some of the similar struggles and their default setting is to listen first, not to fix,
Right.
in a non-judgmental manner, then all of a sudden trust is built.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the emotional intelligence piece really comes into play.
Right.
And understand too, parents have come to me and said, oh, geez, I could get a mentor for my kid and I can find out what's going on in my kid's life. And I go, no, we're not
No.
a spy service. And we have a confidentiality contract.
Interesting, yes.
Where we basically, the child, teen, adolescent can tell their parents if they choose, but that information's not going to come from us.
That's brilliant.
Our conversations remain confidential
Yeah.
at all times, with the exception
Yes.
being if there is a safety concern.
Yeah.
I
There's
was
still the
I
duty
was
to
gonna
report.
ask though how you manage that, because the duty to report. So you already know that you're dealing with vulnerable children who might disclose something. How do you manage that duty to report? Because it might come up quite often.
Well, and I would imagine too, if I may, Chris, before you answer, is if a child, like let's say a 12-year-old confides in a 16 or 18-year-old, what's going on? That 18-year-old probably does not have the ability to properly
assess
support
whether or not it is a reportable situation.
Well, I mean, because of the work we do, I'm picturing, abuse in the home, for example, bullying at school, maybe a teenage relationship that's, where things have happened that nobody is maybe consented to, etc. What's the mechanism behind the mentor relationship that has those safety parameters built in?
Yeah. So first of all, it's all done online.
Okay.
For one.
Okay.
We're not doing person to person.
Okay.
At least not to this extent. Primarily because of the safety aspect. We also, I encourage, unless that someone's absolutely adamant that it is a male and a female.
Okay.
Okay. Just because it could get, I don't want anything to be misinterpreted.
Yeah.
And we basically transcribe all of our meetings to ensure that we have some safeguards in place.
Okay.
But before we even bring them on as a mentor-mentee, we also have a risk assessment tool that's FDA approved. It is basically, it will show kind of in various spectrums, whether it's anxiety, depression, addiction, ADHD, suicidal ideation. It'll show kind of where they are relative to kind of safe versus kind of gray or
on the
red
spectrum.
zone.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we also have a matching algorithm with our mentors and mentees. So we want to we put different weighting on different things.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it's one of those things that we want to make sure that the relationship, there's commonality, but also it's really important that they get along and they trust one another. Because if that doesn't happen, and hey, listen, we're not going to get it right all the time.
Of course.
And that's why we don't just say, hey, here, this is what the algorithm says.
Right.
They basically get kind of the 3 best suited mentors that kind of fall within the parameters that they showed us.
I love
so
this.
they ultimately get to decide.
How old are the mentors?
They vary. I'm a mentor.
Yeah, that was going to be my next
really
question.
I'm so
Yeah.
curious to know, like, is there...
So are you then mentoring other parents who are in, sort of similar trials and tribulations? Like, are you trying to stay within a certain age range in terms of the matching? How does that part work?
Yeah, so the mentor-mentee is we will mentor from like 10 years old to 25 years old.
Okay.
So I've got mentors. I've got a stable of over 50.
Wow.
And I've got people over 200 have said they want to be mentors.
That's amazing.
But you know what? One thing happened that I didn't anticipate. So and just kind of the B side to that question. If someone is in, let's say, in crisis mode, where they wouldn't normally be a good fit for a mentor, if they are in therapy, let's say they are seeing a mental health practitioner, and the mental health practitioner says, yeah, we think it would be a complement to what we're doing. Because I've always said that mentorship is a complement because we're in a completely different lane.
Yes.
Then that's kind of the exception to the rule.
Okay.
But the other thing comes down to training with our mentors. They've got to be, we test them for emotional intelligence. And it's just got to be a fit. It's got to be conversational, right?
Yeah.
It can't be this regimented, okay, this is what you do. And honestly, sometimes you'll have those those mentor-mentee dynamics that's the kid, it's like a standoff. Who's gonna talk first, right? Totally relatable as parents, right?
And how do people find your services? So whether they be a teenager listening to this, or a parent, or
A company.
like how do they find you, and what is that process like?
I do a lot of writing on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
so I get a lot of traction from that.
Yeah, that's how I found you.
Um,
Yeah.
it's my website's a great source of information. There's a lot of tools and resources on there. So thementorwell.com. Um, I have a parent support group as well
Wonderful.
That's
that is
amazing.
online. It's all based on the school platform, and I've got almost 150 parents from around the world
It's awesome.
who are looking for community.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
navigating some serious shit with their kids, and they don't know where to go. So they end up joining our group, and they have other parents who are dealing with the same stuff that they're dealing. And yeah, not to say the misery loves company, but you know what? They know what someone is dealing with
Yeah.
because they're going through it
Yeah.
as well.
It's like speaking the same language. You immediately break down so many barriers, so many layers to the getting to know someone. Once you know you're in the same boat, it's like a
community.
shorthand.
It's creating a community, so that's wonderful. That you
Yeah,
have
so
that you've
so
done that.
that's but an interesting thing as well. The dynamic between kind of parents and their kids is actually very similar to the dynamic between managers and their teammates. And so that kind of prompted me to start a coaching service for managers
Ah,
to identify the blind spots amongst their team. And how can you identify when team members are struggling? Because, yeah, team mental health aside, 40% of employees are dealing with some struggle, whether that's financial struggles, divorce, um, dealing with elderly parents, um, addiction,
Oh, yeah.
undisclosed health issues.
Yeah.
So, and often it's compounded by not just one, they don't happen conveniently one after another.
right.
They're usually compounding. So, being able to help managers to be able to identify what's going on, because the same thing precipitates within their team.
Yeah.
Productivity loss, all this stuff that impacts their teams negatively. So teaching them not only to identify, but how to have that safe first conversation. So they actually don't shut down.
Right.
They feel safe.
Yeah.
And that minute when someone has been holding something so tightly, so emotional for so long, and they go into their manager and they go, I've got this thing I've been dealing with.
Yeah.
And you'll know within 30 seconds whether it was a good decision or a bad
Right.
decision.
It's so
Right.
true.
And
It's so true. And it's funny what you say too, Chris, is like, I think at the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned, kids don't want to come to the parents because they're controlling the punitive, like the consequence
Right.
of whatever disclosure. Same thing.
It's like going to the police and telling them you committed a crime.
Well,
right? It's like,
exactly.
hey, and you need help. Like,
Yeah.
they're right.
But here you have, I know a lot of women that will wait as long as possible before sharing that they're trying to get pregnant, that they are pregnant, like any kind of family planning because of the consequences. So there isn't traditionally that kind of trusting relationship for a lot of folks, in the working world. So I love that you have identified that it's exact
and
parallel.
that work home connection.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is You can't separate the two.
Well, it's funny. We talk a lot about work-life balance,
Yeah.
but we talk about it in terms of like, oh, do you still have hobbies? Do you get a vacation? Do you get,
Right.
downtime? Are you able to close
You're
your
worried
computer?
about bringing the work into the home.
Bringing the work home.
Right.
But this is actually, we need to bring the home more into the work. We need to humanize that sort of workplace and build in those safety parameters so that people can be free to share.
Or recognize it that's already happening.
Yeah.
It's just showing up in a different way.
Yeah.
Like you said, the retention issues and all productivity and all that.
I think
so interesting.
you have really hit the nail on the head,
Yeah.
not just in the need, but how you're getting in front of people. So, I mean, mad props to you, Chris, and also just such gratitude from Amanda and I from the bottoms of our heart of coming here, sharing this difficult story, being so vulnerable. There are so many of our listeners that can identify with this, that know the grief journey and are probably feeling so seen and so heard by your story. So thank you from the bottoms of our heart. And mentorwell.com for anyone who needs more information about your services.
Mentor well.
What did I
Mentor-
say? Oh, the Mentorwell.
Mentorwell.
Okay, thank you. Good.
TheMentorwell.com.
Thought I really pooched the name. So thank you. TheMentorwell.com.
Someone stole the mentorwell first.
Those
okay.
rascals. I know someone stole alexhoward.com, so I got to be .ca, which
That's
not as cool. But
Yeah.
you know what? Actually, to be Canadian is cool. So
cool.
I'm going to show it off. Chris, thank you so much.
you very
We're
much.
so appreciative, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to share my story and share Maddie's story.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.